Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Livingston, president of Want Leverage Communications, a public relations and LinkedIn consultancy based here in New York City. Don't forget to get more PR tips. We'll be sharing a lot in today's PR patter on wantleverage.com. We've got our new tip sheet, Make Your C-Suite Stand Out on LinkedIn, which I think you'll get a lot of value from. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, mastering media interviews through mindset. And I want to give a warm welcome to my friend, Arielle Lapiano. She helps professionals become visible leaders by helping them to fine tune their presentation and media interview techniques. She's often described, and I love this, as the mindful motivator, because she's able to really focus and zero in on leaders she works with and what their communication style is, and to really help them shine. Her media and presentation training is often conducted through a mindfulness lens, which is a very different way of thinking about preparing leaders to successfully deliver media interviews and also presentations, whether they're inside a company or outside to an external audience. Arielle was formerly the chief communication officer for a cryptocurrency company, managing director of communications for global law firm Paul Hastings, and she was previously a journalist. So she's got the perfect background to talk about this subject. Arielle, before we get started, just welcome. And maybe you could elaborate a little bit and tell us about more of your backstory.
Sure. I'm gonna go way back, Julie, for
All right.
the story. I got my first client at around 5 or 6 years old. Yeah, I started young, and my first client was my baby sister. And my baby sister, who is a lovely adult, was a little bit of a terror as a child, and had a lot of challenges expressing herself. And if you can imagine the late 1970s, us both in bell bottoms, sitting in a very ugly orange kitchen in Queens. My mom had yeah, it was ugly. I mean, what was orange in the 70s?
I don't know. Orange and that olive green and yellow. I don't know.
Yeah, we were in ugly. Everything was ugly. We were all ugly, sitting in our kitchen, and my mom had just given in to giving us some like M&Ms.
Right.
But the way my mom gave us M&Ms was quite anal. She gave us 10. Like so we had gotten like our 10 M&Ms, and my baby sister Allison was like not having it. But instead of she was 2 or 3, very, very terrible 2s. And instead of having a conversation about this, not that she should have had to, she did what she did very often: stormed out the door, like the door to the house, started running down the block. And I'm like, no, I got this, Mom, and I'm like running after her. So there we are, both in our like big bell bottoms, like running. I caught her and was like, what are you doing? I don't know exactly what, obviously.
Yeah.
Dude, like, what's up? We got to go back in there and get ourselves together. You're going to go back in and you're going to like ask Mom for some more M&Ms, and you're going to do it nicely, and you're going to use your cuteness. I used her basically to get what I wanted to.
Right. But you were also coaching her on how to communicate properly.
That's what I'm saying. So like from 5-ish or 6-ish, I had my first client in my baby sister. I was her spokesperson and I was her trainer.
And love it.
Yeah. And that sort of evolved. I mean, I really do feel like for me, my communication skills came from when I was a child. Go from that stage to maybe 10, 11, I became more of like the mediator, moderator for my family. We were going to go out to dinner. I knew my sister hated going out to dinner. I'm like, listen, everybody, beforehand, this is what's going to happen. I need my Parmesan. So Mom, chillax. Allison do this, Dad try to hold the anger in. Everybody had notes. And I got my chicken parmesan. You know,
That's right, right, right.
so
Everybody was happy in the end.
everybody was happy, and in a weird way, like that's what I've been doing ever since, helping people prepare for situations, some of them tough, to get what they want in a calm, relaxed manner.
That's great. What a great story. I love it. I can picture you doing that too.
I really like chicken parm.
I know you'll do anything for it.
I will.
So you've worked with leaders across industries from, Harvard to Morgan Stanley, and you have also a special place in your heart, let's not forget this, for nerds and animals, right?
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. So let's dive in. Can you share some common issues that leaders have with public speaking or presenting? I mean,
Yeah.
you've had so much experience in doing this.
I've had so much experience in doing it and seeing different things and falling down on my face myself many different times.
That's how you learn, right?
And that's how you learn. And I like to be real about that. And again, like I'd say this might be a little counterintuitive, but like the biggest challenge I see out there are people that just aren't doing it. Right. It's like the people, and I'd include myself in that too. For years, I was just staying comfortably behind the scenes, even though I had stuff I wanted to say, even though I had been doing public speaking since I was in high school. I was captain of my high school debate team.
Of course.
Nerd.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
Sorry?
Why doesn't that surprise me?
But like, despite all those things, I still wasn't putting myself out there. And that to me is the sort of biggest, I wouldn't call it a pandemic, but that's the biggest challenge with public speaking and media interviews, is that people are held back by anxiety and fear. And in fact, like some people say that fear of public speaking is the number one fear. I mean, people put it ahead of snakes, and some people even put it ahead of death. And I'm, I think that if there's one takeaway from today, that would be one of them, that this is very, very common. And the reason that we see people fumble is because,
and all kinds of people, right? I mean, you're coaching C-level leaders.
Yes. I mean, so it doesn't matter what letter you have in front of your title. We're all human. We all have some very natural fear and anxiety. And that's going to come out when we're speaking, because going back to like my whole lens, we're not being taught how to deal with the fear and anxiety. So
that's great. And what about even the feeling of putting yourself out there? I know even for a lot of, senior leaders, this is not always easy. People are chosen to be leaders for a lot of different reasons. Some don't always have that characteristic of wanting to put themselves in the public eye. It could be fear and anxiety. It could also be, related to their personality, that they're just not that type.
I think that's a very interesting observation. And look, so much of my career I've spent with lawyers, and lawyers, with all due respect, are very risk averse. I mean, it's part of their job.
Of course, right. It's in their DNA almost.
It's in their DNA.
Yeah.
It's not a criticism. It's what they're paid for. Like, please be risk averse to help me, the client, navigate this. And so, of course, there's some like very natural tendencies. And to your point, there are a lot of people that, maybe this isn't the right thing for them either. And that's okay too. One of the things that when I've, in my different in-house roles, like I sort of look at public relations, or maybe think of it more broadly as communications, as like a menu, right? There's like a menu.
Perfect.
And and so maybe there's some people that are like, yes, put me on with Julie Livingston, I'm ready. And other people would be much more appropriate to like write an article, right?
Right.
And that's okay.
Right, because there are different ways of expressing your thought leadership. You don't have to only be on camera or doing a media interview. Maybe it is better to do, take advantage of contribution opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how do you prepare leaders for media interviews? And then we'll get into presentations, but it's all kind of, is it similar?
I think it is similar. And again, it's like everybody's approach is different. In my approach, it's similar. And I'll give you another story of a very senior leader that I worked with. I want you to think of the lion from The Wizard of Oz, like for this. Like that's kind of how I thought of this leader early on when it came to media. Like, I can't do a good like lion in the Wizard of Oz and it's like, you would say media interview and imagine him in the woods and he's like lions and tigers and bears, oh my, like running.
Like,
That was, he was my lion. And I needed to find a way to give him some courage, and so my approach, that's part of it. It's first of all like connecting and really trying to understand your client, whoever they might be, in-house, externally, what makes them tick and what makes them trip, and so really trying to understand them, connect them, build that trust. And then from there, I do a lot of research. Like the research helps build the trust, like to
Sure.
be able to let your lion know, like, look, I get it. Like I get how difficult this field is, this topic is, and you're in safe hands because I'm understanding it too.
That's great.
And then the last thing is
And that calms them down probably
that
too.
calms them down a little bit. It's like, there's lions, tigers, and bears, but you realize, okay, we're gonna like be able to deal with the lions and tigers and bears.
So they could take a breath and kind of let you do your thing.
Exactly. And no, and the last thing is really giving people like the toolbox, right? It's like, and the toolbox is when I feel much more like an old school traditional media trainer advisor, right? Like I'm going to work with you to make sure that you have a strategy, you have the messaging strategy. And I'd say where I try to do a little bit extra with the mindset is like, how do you want people to feel? Why is this important to you? Like the more that I connect people to their passion, to their purpose, and to how they want to make people feel, I always feel like that results in a better interview experience for both people.
I couldn't agree more. What about leaders who have extensive print media interview experience, but have never really been on camera, or maybe they did it, a few times, but it was a long way ago. How do
Yeah,
you deal with that? Because I think being on camera is a completely different experience.
it is a completely different experience. And I
Like
mean,
being under the microscope, right?
it's completely different. I think too, like it's so interesting, like even like with Zooms, like a Zoom versus like being in front of like a live audience. Like for me personally, like I'd much rather be in front of a live audience than on a Zoom. I'm happy to be here, of course, with you, Julie. But
No, nothing can replace being in person with someone. It just
yeah,
can't.
every situation is just it is different, and I think that most people respect the difference. I think that there are some people out there that might be really seasoned with talking with print media and then maybe get a little bit, let's say, overconfident. I noticed one of your audience members, in promoting your event, David Lacombe, he talked about this more recent incident with the CEO of a cereal company suggesting on live TV, I don't know if it was live TV, but on TV, he suggested that people eat cereal for dinner. Incidentally, I did have Cheerios for dinner.
I knew you were going to admit that.
I love Cheerios.
Sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And he came under a lot of criticism. There are headlines like that are saying, let them eat flakes. And the reason that's happening is because cereal prices have gone up extraordinarily because of inflation. And the other thing that's happening is that people are just sensitive to like a rich guy telling them to eat cereal for dinner. So
right, as if they can't afford anything, if they couldn't afford anything else.
Exactly. So I think that's an example of somebody that was really seasoned, just tripping, and I don't know enough about what he was told beforehand and how
like
he
what kind of training he had.
Exactly. But it just, unfortunately, it's an example and a story of how things can go wrong much more quickly on camera. And I think, again, I'd go back to the anxiety factor, because especially if you're on live TV and you're getting a question, you are thinking a million things in your head. You're like, how does my hair look? Do I still have spinach in my teeth? And then how am I going to answer this question? Am I sweating? Your
right.
brain,
And you're in this compressed timetable, right? Like you don't have it, you can't go back and think about it. You're being asked on the spot.
And this is where, again, I'd argue that like the mindfulness component is so important, because
So explain how that works, Arielle. Well, first of all, for people who don't know, explain what mindfulness is.
Sure. Well, I'm going to give my own sort of spin.
Okay, good.
Because it's defined like a million different ways. Like how I would define mindfulness, so that it's easy to remember, is it's being aware without judgment, or being aware and letting the sort of judgment float away. Right. So for instance, I could be here with you and think for a second, well, that was dumb. Why did I say that? I feel dumb. But then like letting that dumb sort of go in a cloud. Like the dumb just sort of like, it's like a helium balloon and it just sort of floats away. It's being aware that you're nervous, but being accepting.
Right.
And that what that awareness does is it allows you to hopefully like take another pause, take another beat, give yourself the chance to think. I think that this is one of the sort of biggest tips I have for people when they're doing any type of interview is pause. We're not comfortable pausing. And the funny thing about it,
interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny to me too, because most of the time, a well-timed pause makes you sound smarter. Yeah, if you go
because you're really thinking about it.
Yeah. And so that's like my biggest advice to people is take a pause. Allow yourself to think. Even if it's like noticing, oh my God, I am so nervous right now and I don't know what to say, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, you could say things too, like, hey, Julie, that's a really interesting question. I've never gotten that before. And I mean, we need to like give ourselves the permission to do that.
That's such a great tip, Arielle. I think of myself. I used to do a lot of media interviews myself as a spokesperson, and um, there were a few times where I was challenged. I had to answer something when I was defending kind of a company's crisis situation, and I should have used that line. That's a great question. Let me think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, or just even, as I said, forget the line even. It's just like the notion of pausing. And that's, again, that's part of mindfulness. It's pausing, it's stopping everything for a second and recognizing what's going on.
Yeah. Very deeply, right?
Yes or no, because right, it depends, right? Because sometimes what you're feeling is very obvious, and sometimes it's not, you know.
Right, right,
So,
right. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah, good.
I love that. So you have something called the three sets, that refer to something that occurs in life and in interviews or presentations. So what are these three sets?
Sure. So I have to I was very lucky to do a coaching program over the past couple of months, and I learned from this coaching guy, Xander Fryer, that there are three sets in life, right? And he talks about skill set, tool set, and mindset being
Mm,
sort of the most important sets to like help set you up. Sorry, a lot of sets. I had to
right.
that. Um, for success in life. And I realized that those same sets are, to me, what are important for media interviewing mastery or presentation
Yeah.
mastery, right? So it's it is about skills. We have to be real about that. And that to me means practicing, right? Giving yourself some opportunities to hone your skills. It is about tool set, which is about things, let's say, like having a messaging framework, or doing your research, having some real strategies and templates for what you're going to do. But the thing that most people don't tell you is that it's also about mindset. If you're going into a media interview or anything in life thinking I'm going to suck at this, right?
Right, right. That's not going to work very well.
It's not going to work very well. Go back to like our Wizard of Oz analogy. You know, if you're like the lion in the beginning of the Wizard of Oz, or the Tin Man, and you just don't feel like you have it, um, your interview, your presentation isn't going to go well. But of course, what we learned in the Wizard of Oz is that they did have these things all along, and it's sort of about trying to do the same for yourself. Now, that doesn't happen in 5 minutes before
No.
an interview. Like, that's the thing. It takes work, and I'm still working on that myself and constantly learning.
Well, we're all the shoemaker's children, right? We can help other people do this sort of thing and promote themselves, but we're often a little weaker at it for ourselves.
No, my kids
Uh,
have no shoes. They have no shoes. Yeah, they're definitely. I have that situation for myself a lot. That's why I was so happy that you invited me to come on.
yeah, no, that's so great. What is different? How does how does preparing for a presentation differ for internal and external audiences, or does it?
I think that's an interesting question. I feel like the presentation prep really will be the same. Like, it might look different, right? The final result will be different, but to me, it's still about understanding your audience, understanding what's important for you to get across, and being aware again of what's going to make you tick and what's going to make you trip.
It's great. How do you learn from delivering presentations or media interviews? Like, what's your method around that? What do you do to help clients learn
So learn after the fact.
after, yeah, after they've done it?
It's interesting. I love that question, Julie, because I feel like it's different for every person. And that's where I'd say like even preparing somebody is different for every person. So let me give you an example. Most, let's say, media presentation trainers that would come in and set you up and film you and then make you watch yourself back. There are some people that will help, and there are some people that will hinder. And so it's sort of the same on the flip side of it, right? Like, so there's some people, like, if you go into like a really prescriptive like analysis of how the thing went, it might be really good for one person and really bad for the other. So I
Right.
think, I hope you don't think this is a cop out answer, but it
No,
depends.
not at all.
It
Not at
depends,
all.
because like everyone is different, and it goes back to the ticking thing, right? Like there's some people that
Yeah.
they're like, I love like understanding everything, give it to me. I want to know everything. And then there's some people out there that are like, I'm just so glad that I did it. How to just overall, was it all right? And so I think being respectful of the person rather than
Yeah.
what, like, your method is. So that's
Yeah,
my
but I do think, and this has been my experience, that every presentation you deliver, every media interview you do, there's some kind of a learning.
I think that there is, and I will tell you again, in my, with my clients, either when I've been coaching or whether I've been in house, the biggest question I like to ask is, how did that feel?
Love it. Oh,
That's the most important thing for me. Like I said, that's not going to be what, you know what I mean? Like that's not like what feels important to everyone else, but for me, that's what I care about.
absolutely. I that is such excellent, such good insight, because the more you feel positive about that experience, the better you're going to want to improve, and you're going to want to do it more often.
Exactly. Like even for us, like today, like I came into this interview before the fact, and I thought about like what I wanted the experience to be like. And I was like, you know what? I want to have fun. Like,
Yeah, of
I
course.
mean, like I know that this might feel like a serious topic to some, but it's like, look, we're not talking about surgery here,
No.
cancer. I'm talking to Julie, who I know. Like, I want it to be fun. And as a result, I'm probably going to get off of this time with you and be like, that was fun. And
Yeah, absolutely.
then I'm
That's
gonna,
how I prepare myself to do this.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then I'm going to want, and to your point, then I'm going to be more likely to want to do it again. And
yeah,
so if I'm working with a client and they say, yeah, that was fun, or, yeah, I really like that, or it wasn't even that bad, I'll take it. I'll take
right,
it,
right,
right? Like,
right.
if you're getting that from, like, the Cowardly Lion, the 3rd time he's doing a media interview, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm gonna end it here, Arielle. This has been such a fun, yes, fun
Yay!
and delightful conversation. I learned a lot from you, as I'm sure everybody did. How can people get in touch?
Thank you, first of all, Julie, for having me and getting me to do some media interviews. I really appreciate it. And people can get in touch with me at ariellelapiano.com.
That's awesome. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on PR Patter. Don't forget to go to wantleverage.com and download our tip sheet. Make your C-suite stand out on LinkedIn, and I'll see you next time.